Yes, we are live delegates.
Okay, Chair.
Okay, for the audience watching, let me repeat the agenda today. It's going to be about how transparent media is. Yeah, so the transparency of the government through the medium of media. So what this basically talks about is how the government should handle information and how they should publicize them. Should it be completely transparent and face the effects, or not be transparent? The delegates over here are the one going for transparency and Gaurangi going against transparency. Delegates, are you ready with your speeches, your motions?
Yes.
Okay, Gaurangi, you may go first with your motion. Tell me when you're ready, and I'll thank
Chair,
you for two. Just go ahead.
isn't force supposed to go first always?
No, we do not handle such a thing like that. It's
Okay,
completely
Chair.
random.
Okay. I'm ready, Chair.
You're not ready.
You can start.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, you may proceed.
You
Ready
can
when
start.
you
You
are.
can start.
Okay. Honesty and transparency lead to vulnerability. Now, this is Gaurangi, and I'm going to speak against the topic government transparency through media. Now, I have few points which I would like to put forth. Now, the first point being mass agitation. Now, when the government starts becoming transparent with the information about all the cases, and not only talking about the pandemic which we are going through, but even the previous situations, as such, the normal day-to-day news which we have, when government starts putting a complete transparent news, that time people tend to misunderstand it, and some people tend to get agitated by it, which does not really lead to a good way of society. Second one is security. Now there are lots of security reasons why the government is not transparent. Now, when I talk about this, it's not only related to the pandemic, but even previously, if the government was to be transparent with each and everything they do, there's a likely chance that there'll be a security breach. Now, coming to the pandemic, now we do know that coronavirus has not only affected the areas in the locked areas, but even the borders. So again, this would lead to a security breach. My third point would be about the validity and accountability of media. Now, what we need to understand is that media cannot be always accountable. Even when you say that it's a government site or a government media which you're talking about, it's usually one-sided. Now, what I mean by this is that when there's a government channel, I believe that the ruling party's views are shared and the opposition party does not get a say in it much. And then when we talk about a normal media, which is a freelance media, over there we are not sure about the accountability. And what I mean to say by that is that we cannot be sure that whatever news they're telling to us is completely 100% sure. And sometimes the news are meant for the profit of the media background and the company, so they really heighten the news up and say it, which is not always good for the surroundings and the person involved. Now, coming to my last point is the validity of information. Now, again, what the information which are being shared, we do not have a process of checking whether it's right or wrong. Now, if the government stakes claims that it's being completely transparent and gives us the wrong information, then we would be guided with high rates of confusion, and we would be guided to the wrong path, which would essentially lead to a state of confusion in the set of the civilian mindsets, and it would lead to a
Wrap
way
up,
when
delegate.
yes. So basically, the delegate strongly believes that the government should not be completely transparent, as there are a few things which are left quiet for some reasons, and secrecy is sometimes really valuable. Thank you.
Very well, delegate. Your motion has ended. The one, you may speak
Yes,
your
sir.
motion now.
Okay. Greetings to one and all present here. I'm Dhunmachan and I'll be debating for government transparency. Why should the government share all of their news? Now, first of all, government is in the supreme. It has the task and the job of protecting its citizens, the welfare of its citizens, etc. It has the right to let the citizens know. By properly channeling the news on media, the government can spread information. For example, when the pandemic was announced and the first lockdown was announced by Narendra Modi, people exactly came to know what had to be done, extent of the lockdown, etc. He also came up with various activities such as clapping, lamps, etc., which help to build trust, a sense of security and unity among people. And also, now, if people do not get the news, and if somehow there has been a breach of news or leak of news, then people will be even more angry that the government hasn't shared the news with them in the first place. So, this will further create civil unrest. So, why take the risk in the first place? Also, now if the government shares the news beforehand, people can plan. So, people can act upon if they receive the news, they can do long term planning. And also, if the government is withholding information, and again, if it is leaked, then how can the government be trusted? It needs to build trust among its people. Then only it can get votes for the next election, etc. Now, many false news have been circulated against this COVID-19 pandemic, but government transparency allows the government to remove these false rumors or to at least correct these false rumors by stating to the people. Currently, in the lockdown, people are advised to stay at home only via news media, etc., by government published in websites, etc. So, if there was no transparency, then how would people know about all these? And second thing, there are many illiterate people in the world, okay, in India also. So now, if the government does not give the news, and okay, now if the government gives the news just before 1 day or 2 days, okay, at least the literate people know how to act. But the illiterate people, they won't even know what to do. So this will create further unrest and it will lead to a divide between the people with the information and without the information. Any panic buying, also the panic buying was also checked off by the government by circulating news that the essentials will still be available. So thus, I again repeat my point. Government transparency is important. Thank you.
Very well said. Right on the time. Um, the delegates have spoken. You guys know what each other has said. So as Gaurangi went first with her motion, I think it's only fair that Dhawan, you go first with your question. Now you can now question your opponent. So yeah, shoot away.
So can I ask? Can I
Yeah,
go?
Yes,
yeah.
you may.
So you told that it will lead to civil unrest because the government shares sensitive information or information that is disturbing to the public. However, there's a chance that the information might be leaked in the future, and due to this information leak, people will be more angry on the government that the government didn't share the information in the first place. So that will create a bigger civil unrest than the previous one. So what do you have to say about this?
Delegate, you said that there might be a leak in the information later on, but then you have to consider that when the government itself is sharing the information first, there will be the same kind of effect that will happen. And now, yes, the people might be agitated that why didn't the people government share it first? But then there will be only a leak if the government is getting vulnerable and it's being transparent to people who have accessibility to such kind of medias. Now, what I mean to say by this is that it's not necessary that whatever the government says is true. And yes, to maintain trust, there needs to be a level of transparency. But what we need to understand is that that level of transparency comes when we have a way to check the other person. And now coming up to the agitation and the people being unrested by the disturbing information which is said by the government. Now, you also stated a point about saying how illiterate people would not get to know it before the literate people. Now, let me just give you an example. Let's say the government has stated a news about this and this nurse in this and this hospital working for the welfare of the people, and yes, she's treating coronavirus patients. Now, this is a clearly a very good job, and she should be applauded for it. But then her family is looked back at. Her family is looked down at, and this. I mean, clearly they don't have a part to do with this. And I would understand if the nurse would be staying away from her family because of all the safety issues. But then these illiterate people would not understand the news well, and they would have a sense of fear related to the family. Now, this was just an example, and now imagine this in a mass scale. Imagine a society, and like let's say a small village or a small area where there are cases of coronavirus, and the government shares this news, being completely transparent and sharing the each and everything, like the building, the apartment number. Now, imagine the situation of the people over there. Imagine the situation of the civilians living over there and living around. Now, the people living around who are literate, as you said, they might be able to understand and they might not be confused by this information. But then we need to understand that illiteracy is high and that people would get confused, people would get agitated, and they would have such bad views about this society, and they would have a sense of a kind of a fear related to that society, and that would essentially lead to the drawbacks of the family which has been affected by this virus.
So, okay, I would like to tell 2 points. First of all, you told it won't have the same effect, but yes, it will have the same effect. Now, if the information is told beforehand, people will at least get time to act accordingly to it. At least they know, okay, the information has been leaked. Now they have some time at least to plan. But now they find out that the government has been withholding information after a long time. Then the civil unrest will be much larger than the previous one. And what you suggested was we do not tell where the coronavirus cases or who has the cases, exactly where they live, right?
Yes,
The
yes.
heart number, etc. Then what do you know? Then what about the people living around it? Then you are, leaving them to be affected by coronavirus. If they do not have the enough information of who has the COVID-19 cases, then they will be affected. They are vulnerable to getting affected, to being affected by the cases, right?
Delegate, what we need to understand is that how it will affect the people. Now, the situation which you're talking about is a kind of an idealistic situation, which would happen in utopias, in a sense that the transparent information is correct, it's valid, and the people would take it in the manner the government is supposed to give it out to. Now, considering the situation which we are actually going through, and which we consider that how we the way we think the pandemic is going, I believe that we do have citizens and we do have civilians which might take it in the wrong manner. And now, if government completely becomes transparent, there are people who have power and they might do something wrong. This would cause a more civilian unrest. And considering that, you also said it wouldn't have the same effect. Whereas if the information comes directly from the government, people would be more aroused to it. People will be more. They will believe it more. Whereas we don't know what the validity is. But if it comes from a leak, there's a chance that half of the literate people will understand that it's a leak and they might not even trust it. So if it's a information which could be arousing and which could cause civil unrest, I believe that it's a matter of trust, and it's a matter of understanding the civilian mindsets and then releasing information which we could which we are sure about wouldn't cause civil unrest.
So, delegate, what you are suggesting is we do not inform people about who has coronavirus cases. Instead, because we are worried about their mindset. Then what about the people who get COVID-19 due to not knowing information? Then the cases will increase, and then they will blame the government that why didn't you tell that that guy had coronavirus like that?
Delegate. Now, what we need to understand is that the way we are telling the people about the way we are telling civilians about the people and the patients, that the method we tell them is really different. Now, if you have been watching the news, the way the news has been hyped up and the way coronavirus has been showed. Now, I understand that it's a pandemic, but we should also understand what civilians would think of it as a normal, as a person from a middle class or a person from a lower class. Now you say that we shouldn't be that I stated that we shouldn't be telling people about the coronavirus and who all have it, but no, that's not what I mean. I mean that we should tell only that much information which wouldn't cause civil unrest and which wouldn't cause the patients to be in a much distressed state. Now, how would we impart this information? Would be probably to tell the family, and the family themselves should have the responsibility to stay far away from them. And the people who are getting affected by coronavirus, they should know that they are in quarantine and they should maintain distance. Now, if you go start telling civilians, and let's just say like a 1% chance that that person does not have corona, and you have been misguided through some source which you thought was valid. Now, imagine the person who has been rumored upon. Imagine their situation. So transparency isn't always good because you can't be accountable for it.
See, you told it is a responsibility
No,
of the
delegate, you do
family.
not delegate. You do not have the
Yeah,
permission to follow up.
yeah, okay, fine.
Gaurangi, you may question the one now.
Yes. So, you said that Delegate, you stated these three statements, and I would quote on them. So you stated, and I quote, that people would be angry if this information would not be shared with them. Then the second thing you stated was that if people are praising on false rumors, then it would be the government's job by showing this information to correct it. And the third thing which you stated was that the illiterate people would get to know through the literate people. Now, what I want to ask you is that when you say such things and when you say that government is being transparent, how are you accountable for it? And when you say that the news is from a government website and that yes, it's completely accountable because it's a government stated website, let's say DD News. Now, if it will be a kind of a one-sided a one-sided perspective, and so how would you state about that?
See, now it's not only a one-sided perspective. That party who became the government won because they had the right perspective. See, if they had the wrong perspective, then they would never be elected to that position. And second of all, governments are also releasing many websites, so that people can, give also their suggestions. So in that case, everyone's views are shared.
Yes, delegate. You said that it's only one perspective, and that's supposed to be the right perspective. Now, coming on to the matter of the party and being elected to the right perspective, what we need to understand is that the ruling party is always in check, and it's always in a good path because of the opposition and because of the claims that the opposition makes against the ruling party. Now, if the people are not shown about what the opposition says, then we can't be accountable for the ruling party because the ruling party is not checked on media. Like, and considering the fact which you said about having the right perspective, everyone has different perspectives and no one is right or wrong. Now, we should be having a media which shows all perspectives, but then again, the accountability would be accounted for.
See, now you're telling, okay, now recently you told that the opposition party's views are not shared at all. But no, they are shared. Now, recently Aaj Tak interviewed, Congress party's Sonia Gandhi regarding her views on coronavirus. So yes, opposition party's views are shared. So even if the government doesn't share it, there are many other ways by which the opposition party can share it. And as for accountability, uh, you told that now, as for accountability, there are many websites and there are many people who constantly check this information.
Delicate, then again, you do realize that the government isn't always as clean as we think it is, and the messages and the media which you share isn't always as secured as we think it is. So, when you say that there are people checking the accountability of the government, don't you think that if someone finds out that the government has been sharing wrong news, even if they try to show it to social media, the government might repress it?
See, first of all, not all media is biased. Today, there are so many media channels, people can always make sense of authenticity on their own. And second of all, now, if the government is not clean, as you said, then it would be better for the government to come up with their, whatever wrongdoings, so that at least the people know what the government has done. So what you are suggesting is the government does dirty work and it does not share that dirty work, and we keep on continue voting for that ruling party, and the government again continues doing dirty work.
No, delicate. Now, the
Delegate,
point being,
delegates, no, you do not have the permission to follow up.
okay.
The one you make question, Gaurangi, make it on the same agenda but on a different topic, please.
Yeah, okay. So So now you told that now if a person is quarantined, it is the responsibility of the family to stay away from the other people, etc. But how can you expect the family to always follow that order? You cannot expect the family to always follow that order. Many families do not follow that order, even though they have coronavirus. Recently a case in an hospital where the people misbehaved with the nurses, etc. Even though they had the order to behave properly and to stay away from all other people.
Then again, it becomes a moral obligation of the person in charge and of the people who are in quarantine to maintain distance. And I think the government, instead of focusing on transparency, should focus on how to keep this family apart from the social socially. And by this, I do not mean that that they tell the surroundings that stay away from this family. Instead, they should keep an eye on the family which is being quarantined, that they do not do such wrongdoings. Because it's always better if a person willingly stays apart instead of its surroundings and instead of the civilians which might have a wrong mindset to come and tell them that to come and tell them in a harsh and cruel way to stay apart.
See, now there is always a risk of that family telling more and more people through social media, etc. And in that case, yeah, how can you trust the moral obligation of those family when compared to information? Now, you're simply trusting that they won't share information. What if they secretly share that information to their relatives and from their relatives to more and more people? You cannot, be completely trusted on the fact that yes, people will follow orders from the government. And as for the government hiding them, wouldn't it make the people of the surroundings more suspicious? Like, where did that family go? How is it? Where it has disappeared, etc. So it will make them more suspicious, right?
Delegate, but then it would not make them more suspicious. And you said a fact that they would spread their information to their relatives. So I do not understand what information you're talking about the family spreading to their relatives. And coming on to the point about the neighbors being suspicious about where the family has disappeared, I believe that the government would be a better way to ensure that the family is staying in quarantine, and afterwards, like when they are free of anything and when this corona pandemic has been taken care of, after that when they come back to their houses, I think they'll be better. And there won't be any false thinking in the people's mind that what would have what that these people have corona, and they would have a better understanding.
See, again, you cannot trust people on their thinking. What if the people might hold grudges against the government because the government hid those people from them? You cannot
Delicate. Then
trust
the
the
same thing. Then the same thing goes on to the point that what if the people have a bad mindset because the government told them about this, and what if it's wrong? Now we can't like I said, it's not accountable for. And you said that what if it happens if the people are getting angry at the government because for something that the government didn't tell us. But then we have to understand, delegate, that whatever the government says is not always hard and fast, and there are things that the government does hide from us. And the transparency, like there's a quote that too much or too less of a little of something is bad. Now what you are suggesting is too little of transparency, because obviously the government won't share everything that we are going through, and too little of transparency can be harmful. When the society knows just a little of information, let's say that the family is just threatened by corona but they don't have corona, the society would get a bad mindset. So you can't trust the civilians mindsets, and that's a point which is said by you itself.
Yeah, but now I'm telling it in support for government transparency. Okay, so now what if the society were dependent on that family, and now the government did just they just took the family away, like they just made them disappear. So now that dependency on that family, now if the person was the CEO of a huge firm, etc., and now if the government would have told them the information before, they could have at least planned. Okay, so like the CEO of this firm has gone, and now like how can I earn my income from other sources like that? So now if the government does not tell, here comes the problem of planning then.
Delegate, then again, you're talking about a very impossible solution. Not impossible exactly, at least likely to happen solution problem. And then if you say that, let's say the CEO of a company has been affected because of this, and the government has put them in quarantine, I'm pretty sure the government wouldn't stop whatever income is going towards the employees, because then again, it's the government's responsibility for its citizens. So I personally do not believe that the government would be willing to do something which would hijack the safety and security of the civilians. Instead, when the government does put the CEO in quarantine, it would ensure that the CEO is able to continue with its work, because there's nothing the CEO can do without being in quarantine.
Very well, delegates. No more follow-ups. The
Okay.
roles have switched now. Gaurangi, you can
Karangi.
ask the one. Sorry, yeah, Gaurangi, you can ask the one now.
Okay, Delegate, you stated a fact that which said that there are many medias and there are many news channels, many medias which would give us the chance to check which is authentic. Now, my question comes to this point: when there are many medias, and it's obvious that not every media has the same perspective, as you said in your statement. So, what do you expect the civilians to believe when you say that it's being transparent? You do know that there'll be medias with different ideologies, different perspectives. Now, what do you expect the civilians to believe? Because when the civilians will get a different mindset, and then they become against each other's, so how would you prove the authenticity of that situation?
See, now, as I again told, the government can stop any rumors from circulating. So now, if suppose one of the media's perspective was like opposing the perspective that the government had told, then the government can simply go and tell that yeah, it's the wrong perspective, and it can also publish. And now the PM Narendra Modi is also a fan of his, is like sorry PM Narendra Modi is also available on social media, and he sees whatever his fans tell to him, and then he takes into account what he has said. So the government is open to suggestions from other people, is open to other perspectives.
Then again, when you say that the government is open to other perspectives, then it again comes to the point of what the perspectives are, and then the government choosing those perspectives. And then when you talk about the other media showing false rumors and the government correcting them, we do not know if those were really false or those were really true. And with the government being transparent, again, we do not know if they're actually correcting those false rumors or hiding something from us. So let's say the false rumors are actually something which is true, and something against the government, something which the government has been hiding from us. And if we say that and if the government stakes claims that it's completely transparent, and it says it releases a report against the person who has mistaked those so-called false rumors, then you do understand that the civilians will be forced to trust something which is not authentic. So what would you
You
say
know,
on this?
so it again depends on the civilians' mindset. Okay, so we have no other option than to trust our government, see his fan following, and also check other false rumors. So it is based on the civilian to decide which perspective to follow. And now bear in mind that the civilian was the person who voted for the government to rule them in the first place. So the civilian kept in mind that the judgment or the view of that government, what he or she is voting for, is correct.
Then what would you say about the people who do not vote for the ruling party? Would you say that then they wouldn't have any trust on the ruling party? If you go by the facts that who we have voted and we should trust them itself, then what would you say that okay, let's say about a person who did not vote for the ruling party and who has really high varied perspectives and very high defined values, and they do not follow the ruling party, and then when we all are expected to trust the ruling party, how will that person cope?
See, now first of all, now many people explain to other people how that ruling party is correct. And now at last it depends on the person's mindset whether they need to follow or not. Such ratios will always be there, but we have to always go for majority. So now the majority of the people will have voted for the ruling party, and that's why the ruling party will be there. And yes, the people now you told the people who don't vote for the government, they have problems coping with the news, right? So that is more of a reason of why should the government tell information so that it can build trust among those people also who haven't voted for the government.
Then again, you said that
Then
you
again,
should see
we
just
have run out of
one.
time.
What's just one last
Oh,
follow up, please? Please to follow up.
you know what? For the advancement of this tournament, I'll allow it.
Okay. Delegate, you said that we
May I
should
clarify
see
that?
the.
May I clarify that this will not be a question. There'll just be a point, and we'll be
Yes,
assessing
exactly.
according. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, like assessing the fact that you just said that the majority should be taken care of, then we directly go on to the principles of majoritarianism, which completely neglect our basic values of our democracy. Because I believe all perspectives should be shared and taken care of, which gives more the reason to have different perspectives and give people the choice to what to trust. And when you give a transparent government, it's not accountable for, and usually people coming under the mindset that it's accountable will might follow the wrong path. So yeah, that's it.
See,
Thank you,
I
Chair.
didn't tell that they should only take care of the majority. I told that the government should have more trust building activities so that the people who didn't vote for the government can also have trust to the can also build trust to the government. So I
Delegates
didn't tell
Decorum.
these
No,
only.
Delegates Decorum. Okay. So the time has ended. Thank you for a semi-professional debate. There was some, yeah, fine, semi-professional. I was really not happy with how the points were being thrown really loud. So yeah, the points were good. Very nice points. Very nice composure, both of you. We will let you know the answers pretty soon of who won. May the best person win. You may leave now, delegates.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity as
Thank you,
well.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay. There was
One
still
second. One second.
going
One
away
second,
from the
Venom.
agenda.
Yeah. One
Wait,
second.
wait,
I
wait,
think
wait,
Katie
wait.
has to put this down.
Okay.